the big banks out there. I won't mention logos. You and I have chatted about those before, but you do work in this space, the fintech space, working with selling to banks. Here's what I admire very much about you is that you are somewhat of a chameleon in being able to work in the biggest of big logos and environments and be successful. But you've also walked into startups and building and selling and being successful without product market fit. And let's be honest, one of the first areas and times in which I met you, you were working for a company that I also joined, and at that point, I don't know that I would say there was product market fit. Would you? We were working towards it.
Yeah, I would say that, and I think especially the initial results would validate that.
Here we go. The initial results provided by Mr. Donald Davis. So you joined these organizations, and it wasn't just the organization where I first met you.
Right.
But this track record of working with startups and then coming in and without product market fit, selling. Like how did you do this?
Yeah,
What was your method for?
it's been a while ago to go back and think about it. I think it's about developing relationships, right? And so regardless if there's product market fit per se, that's always super helpful. But if you have the relationship and you can understand what the business problems are and work with them to solve it with some way that your organization can help them, you can get a deal across the finish line. It's tough to scale, but on a one-off, you can get some deals done and grow the business enough. But to really take off, you have to have that product market fit, or the competitors are going to eat your lunch.
No, that's true. But the relationship piece, I would think that's equally as important in your current role, selling and working for a very large logo as well.
Oh, it's just in sales in general. In the role that I'm in now as an individual contributor, I have one account, so I have to know every about that account. I'm listening to earnings calls, talking to anybody that'll talk to me about how they're working with our organization and what we can be doing better. And
Nice.
developing those relationships has been key to success as I've gone back to the individual contributor role.
You're an avid golfer. Do you play lots of rounds of golf with this FI?
I plead the fifth.
Oh, okay. Very safe. Very safe, sir. But I'll say, and I'm going to regret just complimenting you so much because I know what I'm in for after I start.
And you're recording this
And I'm
too, so
recording.
this is great.
And I'm recording. It's out there for prosperity, and we'll just, here it is. But I'll be honest with you because when I have seen coming into the organization where I first worked with you and for you, you had deals where, sure, you were going after some logos. Maybe the price was good. There were also some outlier deals. I can think of one in particular in which it was a very large contract that you were able to swing without product market. And I want to point that out because I do think very often when I speak with fintech founders, there is this inclination to just discount to get the business. And while that is important to some degree, you don't always have to. I'd love to know, do you agree with that or not? You can disagree with me. You
Oh, I do. I think in the fintech space specifically, when you're talking about smaller banks, it's tough because of the references. In this, even on initial prospecting calls, when you're calling some of these banks, and not to pick on in particular state, but I know Iowa has a lot of banks. If you call up a bank in Iowa and tell them that you have a solution that may be a fit for a big business problem, the first questions they ask before we take this any further, can you tell me about three other banks that you're working with in Iowa that are on the same core that can be a reference? Because if not, there's no reason for us to talk any further. Those are that type of stuff is really tough. So if you don't have a price that's compelling, it's tough to overcome those objections when you don't have those references. With that being said, specifically to the deal that you're referencing, it was about understanding what the value was to the bank before ever talking about price. And so once you uncover that this is a huge problem to the bank, and at the point they were going through a huge RFP process. So for me, it was if they're going to dedicate all these resources to solving this problem, there has to be a big cost that's associated with that. If I go in with a small number, they're probably going to throw me out. So I've got to make it seem like I can play with those guys. So that's how that deal came to fruition.
And that's key though, Donald, because I do think there are times in which when we discount so drastically, we're not taken seriously for
Right.
to a bank. We just it's almost laughable. They're like, these folks don't have it together. So I love that you, in that particular example, you realized, you read the room, if you will, and you realized you're spending a lot of time and effort issuing an RFP. That it takes time and effort and resources. Fill in the blank here. I'm speaking of money, either in terms of actual money to pay a consultant or in terms of what they're paying their resources to put that all together. And then you understood from that that this is a perceived problem and they are willing to pay to fix that perceived problem. So what I think I heard you say is we're not going to go in with some lowball offer because we don't have to. They're
Right.
willing to play bigger.
Yeah, I think the other challenge on the smaller company is you don't have a lot of competitive intelligence in the sense of your company doesn't have the dollars to go out and hire one of these firms to come up and arm you with playbook or battle cards. That's on the sales leader themselves to go source all that information and find it, organize it, put it together in a way that the reps can go out there and be able to execute. But without that type of information, you don't really have a good sense of where the competition is priced, and you have to finagle it a little bit. But if you are going in with the low price strategy, you need to be very upfront with your customers that you guys are going to be working together. You don't have any other customers. This is going to be something that you're doing as an introductory thing to get in on them. But if you're trying to actually play with the big boys, you got to have a big boy number. Just how it works.
I love it. And I think you're inclusive of girls too, for anyone
Yes.
watching. Like
Person.
Donald is equal opportunity, exactly. Supporting all. But you mentioned something, or I guess where my mind went, you were speaking about people, bankers in general, appreciating references, sometimes leaning heavily on those references. Do you have a go-to strategy or wording that you use when there are no references? You're the reference. Hey, believe me, I believe in this solution. I think help you.
Not that I could really share on a recorded call here. But no, in all seriousness, in the organization that we worked for at the time, the mission behind the company was to deliver enterprise level software to the middle market and to really allow those smaller banks to compete. There was a mission behind it. So in that case, I had something to say, but I wouldn't make something up just for the sake of making something up. I mean, what you have to realize is that if you, as a salesperson, are selling into banks, you have to think about like an adoption curve and what that looks like, right? And you have to understand that most of the people that you're going to be talking to on a day in and day out basis are laggards when it comes to technology, right? So those people are not going to bear fruit for you, regardless of how good you are. They're not going to bear fruit from you. So it really has to be a time prioritization perspective of how can I find the people that want to innovate? Is this an innovative bank? Maybe the whole bank, the culture is that way. Guess what? That's probably not somebody you should talk to. Last time I checked, again, depending on the size of the bank that you're trying to sell to, there's 5,500 banks in the US. So go out there and find the ones that you feel like are a little bit more progressive.
Yeah, I love that. I can ask you, Donald, for anyone that is maybe a founder just starting out or a new seller in the fintech space, can you give any sort of insight when you plop yourself down into either a startup or let's say when you took over the role at SaaS? Do you have any suggestions of things that you do in the first 30 days to start generating pipe?
I mean, that's a really good question. You have to know.
It really is a good question.
I mean, so I don't. Obviously, there's some businesses. No matter what you do, you're not going to generate legitimate pipeline in 30 days. Every time I've come into a new territory as an individual contributor, I want to get to know the account. I want to get to know every single thing about them. I'm reading their annual reports. I'm listening to their earnings calls. I am looking through LinkedIn and trying to figure out, do I know anybody there, regardless even if it's low level? How can I get in and just talk to somebody about what it's like working there, what the culture is? I'm looking on their job postings to figure out what kind of skill sets they want to bring into the organization. One of the key things I really look at when I come in and I'm doing like account planning and account strategies is which executives in the areas that I'm going to focus on are new. Who's coming in that's new, right? Because that tells me a couple of things. One, if I'm in that area, I need to make sure and protect. And if I'm not in there, it's a good opportunity to get in there. So those are the kind of things that I look at on come into account. But I don't think there's any magic
You know,
formula that if you do X, Y, Z, you're going to generate a pipeline in the first 30 days. And it's crazy, and you're probably laughing at that because of our time working together, where I had a pretty strict system and a pretty strict playbook, and if you just did A, B, and C, you would be successful.
that is
Right?
exactly the way you think. It is. Well,
It's crazy how a few years in an individual contributor role changes your perspective on management, administrative duties.
administrative duties, but we can't discount the hard work, the effort, and the energy. And it breaks my heart when I see people that are just going out and spamming. They get a list of email addresses and they just say, "Let's go, let's hit 1,000 bankers at once," because that is really not a strategy or not a successful strategy in the banking space today. It is going through, like you mentioned, Donald, and doing the work and figuring out who you know or who you know that knows these people. Do you find yourself leaning into a lot of your network where you see someone's connected to someone in an account and asking for intros, or are you making that happen on your own?
It's different with one account. You're basically networking within the account, you know, so it's a little bit different than trying to get a referral here or a referral there.
Yeah.
But it's more critical to the business, because if somebody leaves and goes to another bank, it's not like I can call them up and get business from them. So I need to know who their potential replacement is within the org, and I have to be 2 to 3 years ahead from a relationship and account perspective. I guess can we go back for just a second, because
Of course we can.
I agree with you when it comes to spamming, but I think if you're an account executive in this space, you have to be realistic about your situation, right? Are you like a strategic account executive like me, where you have one account? That's completely different than somebody that's going in as the first hire into a startup that's selling on banks. If that's the case, you are going to have to utilize automation, some of the things like that, in order to scale your reach to be successful. So I think it's different levels of. I'm not a fan of just, hey, spam everybody, but I do think that there is a place for those email automation tools when you're in a situation where you have 5,500 accounts to cover. Guess what? You're not going to be able to personalize everything to get out there. And if you are that person with 5,500 accounts, your job is to figure out of those 5,500 which five are going to spend money with me in the next 12 months or something along those lines. So I just wanted to clear my point on that. That's all.
Okay, now I don't want to be intrusive.
Oh, here we go. I love it.
Contrarian.
I love it. Idea's going to come.
Perhaps we have a similar mindset, but let me clarify, because
Yeah.
I agree that we have to have some tooling to help us be our most productive selves as self. But I still don't think we should go after 10,000 bankers at once. I do think a much better play, and you tell me where you disagree with me on this. I think a much better play is segmenting out those bankers into, I don't know, let's start with something we did when we worked together. Was, let's look at the tech stack they're using. Who are the players we're integrated into? Let's start with those players. Let's look at these asset sizes. Let's look at these normal buying committee members for our solution, and let's map that out, and we can start targeting them using automation, with messaging that's built towards them.
I'm with you. I'm with
Okay.
you. I'm with you 100%.
Wait, what? We
It,
agree on
I,
something?
we
I don't even
agree.
know. I don't even know
And
what to
you
do.
know, I know the distribution of this is very large. So if you are a account executive at a startup and you do not know who your ideal customer persona is, then whoever you report to, you need to walk into them and tell them one of two things. One, you quit, or two, you should be promoted to the VP of sales, because if that is not figured out for you, that's basically what you are. Somebody else's job is to go in there and figure out who the ideal customer persona is, segment all that out, break up the key messaging, break up. This should all be part of the sales playbook that's part of your onboarding. And if you don't have stuff like that and you're new, especially to sales, you're not going to be successful. So find someplace else to go.
Tough. And that even goes if you're a founder and you happen to be watching this. Please don't think that you just need to go after everyone at once. Be pragmatic about it. Follow a process, experiment a bit for a period of time, and then iterate on that and try something different. But it's
It,
always Go ahead, Donald.
I'm gonna say if you are a founder and you're trying to sell to banks, you should hire Stacy Bishop to create a sales playbook for you or create
Oh,
your own. But if you don't have one, do not bring on a VP of sales. Do not
yeah,
bring on account executives because it's just a
true.
waste of everybody's time.
Completely agree with you. And that actually brings me to something you had highlighted earlier, but something that you had done for the organization that we both worked for. I took it and made it my own, but you had already created much of the sales process. You had the sales tech stack in place, the MarTech stack. We knew who we were going after. We knew questions to ask them. I can still remember your pain funnel, Donald, that we would go through and questioning and answering. And while you and I had healthy debates over what to include or what to exclude, you had the structure and the framework there. And that was so meaningful coming into an organization. Did you, like, tell me, do you still use some of those tools today? I'm interested in your present role, or did they
No.
give you those tools?
But
No?
it's you don't hire somebody to come into a role like mine that I'm in now that's not experienced and can
True.
do you know what I mean?
I do.
When for all you founders out there, when you do take on investment and you're sitting in board meetings, hopefully you have a VP of sales to take cover for you. But if you don't, you're going to get questions about time to productivity for hires. Right. And if, especially in sales, and again, depending on your sales cycle, that's a question that you're going to get, especially as you scale, because you have to model all that stuff out, right?
Yeah.
I guess my point is that your job as the VP of sales, especially if you want good talent, to reduce the time to productivity for new hires. You're getting that direction at the board level, but if you don't remove those obstacles of time to productivity, if you hire somebody good, they're going to leave. And then you can get into all the reasons to have it from a perspective of when you're hiring for a startup, as Stacy, there's a lot of recruitment that goes on, right? Think about all the conversations that we have. I remember talking to you for hours, hitting golf balls in my golf simulator, trying to get you to come on board to lead the banking sales team there. But to go find that talent and get them to come work, do you know what I mean? Like you have to show them a path to success. You have to show them a path to OT, or it's just going to be a revolving door. And nothing kills the scaling of a business like turnover.
Have you seen some mistakes founders make when they try to scale sales too early? Have you seen that? I feel like you would have some
I
more.
personally know. I guess the situations that I've come into, it's been like it's all focused on top line, right? Because it's all about the investment and the next exit. For me, what I've really been good at from that perspective is putting together a system, bringing in the right people, and managing to that system as well as making sure and managing upwards. So what I've done is I've just scaled it. Like I've put a system hired. So like I've just seen that work. Again, if you don't have a product market fit or an engine to support that growth, then you could run into some issues. But I've been lucky in my situations. I haven't seen any massive failures firsthand.
That's good. Let's keep it that way,
But yeah,
especially with the big look. Have you seen any instances, Donald, just with your past, where founders might accidentally make things harder for their first few sales hires? Think back, if you will, in your world. Were there any things that fintech founders had the best of intentions in trying to help you be successful in selling, but they actually just made things harder for you that
it's
others
the
could
it's
avoid?
it's the classic not letting go of that part of the business. I think that when you get to the point where you're going to bring on a VP of sales, you have to trust them and you have to give them some leeway, right? I think the average tenure of a VP of sales in a startup slash scale up environment's 18 months. That's very difficult, especially if you're bringing on new talent. It took me, I want to say, 6 months just to create a playbook, right? And then you can't really hire until you create the playbook. And you don't have the reality is in a larger organization, you've got product marketing, right? They're out there doing all that kind of stuff around but you don't have that. So you have to be it all. And it takes a little while because if you go for short-term results but don't really have a solid foundation, it will catch you, right?
Yeah.
It's just when how is it after you get the next investment or is it before? Hopefully it's after, but
I agree. I agree with you. Have you found any, as you think back, especially in the startup stages, have you ever found a fintech founder that says, oh, we'll just grow by word of mouth or product-led growth? Have you ever seen that or heard that?
Not really be
Selling to banks, I guess.
yeah, not be like word of mouth. It's like 1980. I think anybody that's their strategy is yeah. I've never seen a pitch deck that's word of mouth for marketing strategy. So these guys, a
Well,
lot
let's
of these
be
guys,
clear. He's
you know,
making you here.
no, I'm not. No, I'm not. But look, I walked into a top 10 bank and was meeting with people from their marketing group that still spends 30 plus million on direct mail. I don't know when the last time you replied to a direct mail ad is. But
Right. Well,
anyway,
yeah, so the answer is no,
the
is
answer
what you're
is no.
saying. The founder, if they say we'll just grow by referrals or word of mouth in a B2B scenario,
It's not going to work.
that's tough.
Yeah,
No.
that's not going to work. Yeah. Do
I
you
mean,
hear that? Have you heard that?
oh, I thought you were talking about a sound. I'm like, no. I have seen some instances in B2B sales where there has been interest in just leading with product-led growth, or here's the other one, partner-led growth, where people think that they formulate a partnership and then all of a sudden the deals are going to start coming in. I have also seen that not be super effective. I don't know about you, but
I've never seen it work. The
it's
partner, but I guess my question to you is anybody ever said my strategy is word of mouth?
not word of
That's
mouth,
okay,
but
okay, okay.
but
That's all
but
I
if you
thought. I just was curious if that somebody said that to you because I was like, I
the
don't know.
referrals are the same way.
Okay,
Referrals
that's
are
fair.
word of
That's
mouth, or product-led growth is word of mouth.
yeah. I've seen the freemium model, like that kind of that type of, or just like a low
Yep.
subscription cost. Mhm.
Yeah, that kind of thing works. But to, I want to just dial into something you just mentioned, partner-led growth or partner-led. I'm a firm believer in that can't be the only strategy for sales success. What's your take on that?
I have a very jaded view of it. I've never had any success working through partners. I've found it to be more of a fishing exercise. In my experience, it's a game, and
Yeah.
that's my experience.
I tend to agree with you. For anyone that, if I don't think I've actually shared this before, but I'll share it now.
Wow, we're getting deep.
We're getting deep,
We're
Donald.
getting deep.
This is like a therapy couch. I'm sure I probably have shared this with you, perhaps. Partnerships are nice from just getting your logo splashed in other places on their website or maybe coming up in their deck. But having worked at a large logo myself where I managed quite a few partnerships, my teams and I at that stage of my life, we had 80 other products we could sell that we were more directly comped on, and our behavior was driven more to hit our number and to generate the comp that was desired by selling the internal products. Partner products just didn't have the same net effect on quota or on comp structure. So in just everyone probably can identify with this, you build comp around the behavior you wish to see. And if it's most partnerships are referral partnerships, or they just do a small spiff to a seller, so you just don't see
Yeah.
that you're hoping for. That's why I truly think that the strategy cannot just simply be to grow through partnerships. I don't think it's tenable.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't know if you were talking about like resellers or implementation partners, like the
And
all
there's
of
all
them,
sorts of
which type partnerships. I just had never found them to be successful. If you're going to structure one like you're talking about a reseller one, my suggestion would be as somebody who's done that before, if there's not quota relief for the rep, don't waste anybody's time. You might as well not even put the paperwork together.
It's just the way, it's the dirty truth, and nobody
It's-
wants to hear it. It's just the way it is. And you have to
Yeah.
think through those things when you are formulating those partnership agreements, because people are coin operated when it comes to selling, and that's why you have these partners. That's why you have these sellers.
That's
All
right.
right. Donald, do you have something when you have popped into a startup? Is there something where you have said, on day one, I have to create this? This has to be the first priority that we get going in our system. Is it a playbook? Is it
Oh,
a
100%.
framework?
It's
Okay.
it's 100% the sales playbook because
Okay.
there has to be a governing document for the sales organization.
Great. Yep. Do you, and I just have a few more questions for you,
Yeah.
kind sir, but have any thoughts or strategies that you've used around creating urgency in the banking environment, especially a large bank? Like you can even draw upon your current experience. Anything that you do there, just you don't see the slippage?
That's I think that's the hardest thing to do is to create a sense of urgency and to get someone else to act the way and on the timeline that you want them to. With the banking, it's tough. I think if it's not regulatory driven, people do things to make money, save money, and stay out of jail. And so you have to figure out a way to tie that to one of those things or have a relationship where you can ask for a personal favor. I've done that a few times, but that only goes so far. I think you have to, yeah, you have to understand in this sales process what happens for the customer if this doesn't happen. And you have to know what those consequences are, but sometimes there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, sometimes it's just going to be a slip deal.
Sorry.
Kick out that closed deal. You might even kick it out a few times. But
And then is this? I feel like this is going back to one of our old pipeline reviews or something.
I know.
Is there ever an excuse for a slip deal? It's now I have to say yes. 3 years ago,
Yeah.
3 years ago when I've got a board meeting in 2 weeks, no, there's no
No,
excuse for a
right.
slip deal.
When I was a sales leader reporting up to Donald, the answer was always no. There was never a reason for a slip deal. Now
Uh,
it's changed. How
Yes,
things
perspective.
change.
But I will say to all of your listeners and followers that one of the reasons I'm no longer in sales management is because I realized how inferior I was as a leader to Stacy Bishop. I had no business managing her, none at all. So
Do you
went back
know,
to my
do you know what
my
I
real
mean?
calling.
What the story I'm telling myself is, oh my gosh, I must have been so difficult that Donald decided he had to
No,
leave sales leadership.
I was always very jealous of your interpersonal communication
Oh,
and your style. Like
oh,
you always leave people feeling good. Even after you would miss your number for the quarter, I still felt good.
I don't have that. How do we even still talk to you? Tell you, I know, right? That was my
But
job.
you always, but no, but in all sincerity, you always you always make people feel really good, and your relationships are really strong.
Oh,
And
it's
that's not my strong suit.
I'm going to say thank you, I think. I'm
You
always
should.
looking for the backhanded compliment whenever you give me one, because there's always, what's the catch, Donald? What about? All right, I have one final question for you, kind sir, before I let you get back to
I
your
would hire you again,
own
yes.
sales.
I would hire you again, yes.
Thank you. It wasn't my question, but thank you so much. And I would go work for you
Any day of the week.
after thinking about it for 3 months and really journaling every day, I'm just joking. You were fantastic. I know we had our
I want to
moments
work for
where,
you next. I want to work for you next.
oh,
That's what I
well, I
want.
will obviously make you feel good and like a team member and contributing and help with your development.
I appreciate that.
Not that you need it, because you
All
are.
right, let's
All
get
right,
your question. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
last question. Last question. What is one sales lesson you had to learn the hard way that you wish somebody would have told you that was farther along in the journey that you can share with a fintech founder or someone new to sales out there?
I always hate telling this story. But I've been in sales for a few years and I lucked into a very large opportunity. So it was probably 55 times the baseline of the average deal
Wow.
that the company had. And I closed a deal and it's like an ongoing thing, right? They want to cancel. And so I'm responsible for new generation, new revenue and so they want to cancel. And I had no idea who I was even working with and I thought I was working with the decision maker. This was before LinkedIn and not to date myself, but anyway. And so my boss asked me who I'm working with, and he's the CFO or whatever. And he comes out. We have to have a meeting because they're canceling. And long story short, he was very far down on the org charts, and it just was a really bad look for me. Something that I've always been super vigilant about is clarifying the decision making process, which big shocker to you, I'm sure, is what is the decision making process, and it's always what happens next, and really making sure that you ask that 2 or 3 times until you feel like you have that knocked out. Because I was just so embarrassed by not knowing who I was working with that just always stuck with me.
This explains a lot when I think back and reflect together.
I bet.
Donald, you just had this trauma that now I know why those questions kept coming up over and over
Yeah,
again. So,
yeah.
to your point, I've also been in those situations before where you think you're talking to the guy or the girl or the person. You think they're the person. Sometimes they tell you they're the person.
Yes.
And you have to ask very delicately, very diplomatically, and test that assumption again and again until, like you said, you're comfortable with the results. Because I have had that situation happen a few times. Like, more embarrassing, it's been a few times for me where I thought, this is the person, this is the decision maker. They said they're the decision maker. They're not, perhaps they're an influencer, but they're not the signer. So that is absolutely not the same thing. And then you almost have to restart your sales cycle, getting up to the people. And as sellers, and founders, it's fun to talk to people that want to talk to you, but you just have to make sure you know where they rank in proportion to your deal. Wouldn't you say that's the case? That's the takeaway?
100%. And tactically, what I like to ask is who other than yourself is involved in making the decision process? Because as you said, you have to be tactful and not exclude them, because people that are acting that way are doing it for a reason, right? And you have to understand what that reason is. But it's typically because they're insecure about their position within the organization. And so you have to be very delicate about that, but there's different ways around that. And I'm sure if you hire us to work with Stacy, she will tell you all the tactical things that you can do to do that, as well as overcome objections and get your business to a point where there will be an exit.
Oh my God. I will tell you, and then we'll have to have you join as a contractor just for
That's
entertainment purposes.
just for
So
entertainment sources.
so everyone can see just our interpersonal
Boom.
skills and our relationship. Donald, I hope this is the first of many times that we talk.
Pod's coming up. Podcast.
You always make me smile when I'm being insulted, which it's a new experience for me. Only
it's a
one
skill.
you have mastered. Only a Donald Davis. I feel good when I'm being cut down and being knocked down a peg.
That's how you make people feel, Stacy. That's about. People,
I know.
remember. People.
You're
People first.
At the end of it. We've got to do this again just because I
loved
enjoy
it.
it. We need to do sushi. I need to get my rear to Raleigh, Durham, that area. Have some sushi. See you in person, kind sir.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. You're a true professional, one of the best. So we'll look forward to staying in touch, and we should do a podcast. It'd be really good.
We should do that. We should do it. But I know very little about golf, so if you're thinking that it would be
No, this will be sales, but I will talk to you offline about my new venture.
all right. With
All
that,
right.
Donald, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for joining me. I give you a hard time. You truly are a sales guru packaged into this person with a hilarious sense of humor. And I don't know about hubris. I don't know what I would say. You're a great person overall, big heart, even though you might like to pretend that you don't have.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it, Stacy. One of my favorite people. Thanks.